Everybody's telling you, you eat fat, you're fat, all of those things. So can you tell us what's really going on in the food processing today? Because it seems like it hasn't shifted. People still have this fat phobia that
Yeah.
they don't want to eat fats.
And if you eat more carbs than you burn, you're going to burn it in cellular activity, in physical activity. And if there's any left over that you didn't burn, what's left over has to be turned into fat.
Welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please join us on our mission to better a billion brains. Enjoy the episode and remember to share it with your family and friends.
Hello, welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. We're here to explore the cutting edge of brain health, neuroscience, and lifestyle transformation. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's both celebrated and misunderstood, fats and oils. Our guest is Udo Erasmus, health pioneer, founder of the Healthy Fat Movement, actually, and the author of Fats That Heal and Fats That Kill. Get ready to challenge what you think you know about oils, how they shape not only your body, but your brain. So welcome to the podcast, Udo.
Oh, glad to be on. This should be fun.
Yeah, I was so excited to learn that you were doing podcasts because, as I was saying before we jumped on, we used to promote your book way back when in the 80s and 90s, and that was back when nobody understood oils. Today we have a lot of misunderstandings about oils. So what would you say is the number one thing people misunderstand about oils? Because they think anything on the shelf is good for you because they now heard that oils are good. But I know there's a lot of good fats. Like you say, there's fats that heal and fats that kill. So maybe you can kind of define that for our listeners.
Okay, well, the reason for the title of the book was that I realized as I was studying fats, because I got poisoned and I was trying to figure out how to get healthy, I realized there are two opposite stories about fats. There are fats that are good for you. If you know what they are, you need to bring them in. And there are fats that are bad for you. And if you know what they are, you need to make sure you don't bring them in. And and the biggest thing these days is there's a ton of people going around saying seed oils are bad, omega-6s are bad, and you shouldn't take them and they cause all kinds of problems. And it's completely wrong information. They're actually hurting your health by saying that. And all of these people, I've been doing this work for 45 years, like I told you, and there have been books like that pretty much all the time. But right now, there's more books and more people and more loudness about it. Not one of the people who wrote those books has ever talked to me or has ever asked what I'm doing that's different, because I'm doing something that's different. And even way back in 1989, there was a retired professor from Oregon University who assumed I was working for Archer Daniel Midlands and who wrote a whole expose on me, never talked to me. Never talked to me, had no idea what I was doing. And his view was that if you take enough B vitamins, you don't need any essential fatty acids. And there were about, when he said that in 1989, there was about 6,000 different research studies that disagreed with him. And then I read some of his stuff, and I started looking for the references that he quoted. And there were no references behind his reference quotes. So so when I actually tried to find out where his information was coming from, you couldn't find it because he made it up in his head. And I don't know how he got to that point. There must have been some experience he had. And I never met the guy.
Well, I know that there's a lot of people in the biohacking world that they say the number one reason that people are fat, the number one people are sick is seed oils. So you just hit me a little bit. Tell me what's not true about that and what can we learn?
Well, if you understand the biochemistry, if you eat carbohydrates get digested into sugar. You absorb the sugar. The sugar is fuel. It doesn't really have any other function, any other main function, right? And if you eat more carbs than you burn, you're going to burn it in cellular activity, in physical activity. And if there's any left over that you didn't burn, it raises your blood sugar. That can be dangerous. So your body, to protect itself, secretes insulin. Insulin drives the excess sugar into the cells. In the cells, either it's burned in activity, and if there isn't enough activity to do, what's left over has to be turned into fat. Now, when that's done, then your blood sugar is low. And that gives you cravings. Oh my God, eat or die. So then off you go, yum, 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 yum. Then it takes a while to digest the starches. And by the time your blood sugar is normal, you've eaten too much. And then you start the next cycle of what we call carb addiction. And carb addiction has been measured to be between 4 and 8 times more addictive than cocaine. Okay? Now, not only that, when you eat carbs, they turn on the fat production gene, which is called fatty acid synthase. And that does 7 steps of turning sugar into fat. And it turns off the fat burning genes. So now you've turned off fat burning, so you can't get rid of the fat you already got. You're making more fat than you had because you ate more carbs than you needed. And how is that exactly not going to cause weight gain? Right?
Right.
On the other hand, fats suppress appetite. Now they have more calories per gram, 9 calories per gram, whereas carbs have 4. But they suppress appetite, so it's hard to overeat fats. When you eat too much fat, actually your liver has to process them. And if you eat too much, you'll get tired, heavy, or nauseous. And when you're nauseous, eating is about the last thing you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So there's a mechanism built in. But if you look at the omega-3 and omega-6, the good fats, the ones that are essential, that are very sensitive, but you have to have them. Well, the omega-3 especially turns on fat burning in the body and turns off fat production. So, so carbs and fats have opposite effects in that way. And the one that is for weight loss is the fats one, right? Now, there's one thing you have to do though. If you're going to go to fats because you want to lose weight, you need to also lower your carbs. Because when you eat them both, the carbs will override the fats simply because carbs can be toxic. Because if you eat too many, you get high blood sugar. That can get you into a coma. So the body makes sure that the carbs are burnt first. So you need to do a fuel shift, not a fuel addition, right? So when you go to fats, like a kind of a ketogenic diet or diet like that, at the same time, you need to lower your carbs. And we learned that the hard way, because when we started working with omega-3 and omega-6 with flax oil at the time, that we developed that in 1986, we got feedback from people. I started using the oil and I lost weight. And it was so consistent that I started saying, use it for weight loss. And then I got some feedback because I was always open to feedback. We went to 40 countries. They all knew how to get a hold of us because I wanted to know. In a way, we're doing an experiment. We've thought it through. But in the field, sometimes it looks different than in the lab, right? So we're getting the feedback, and a few people said, well, I did what you said, but I actually gained a few pounds. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I wonder what's going on. So I would say to them, so what are you eating? What's your whole diet look like? And it was always consistently that they added the oil to what they were already doing, which was loaded with carbs. And so they just added the oil, and then they put on some weight because the carbs overrode the fats. So we'd say, okay, when you make the change to fats as your main fuel, then you want to lower your carbs at the same time. And that's what we call the fuel shift rather than the fuel addition. And when they did that, they lost weight.
That's
if
awesome.
They had weight to lose.
Yeah. I know that we talked a little bit back in the 80s when I had my franchise company. They just started this fat craze. Everybody's telling you, you eat fat, you're fat, all of those things. So can you tell us what's really going on in the food processing today? Because it seems like it hasn't shifted. People still have this fat phobia that they don't want to eat fats. And how does it affect brain health, if you can kind of tie it in there for us?
Okay, so I think the big thing is like it's like a meme that a 6-year-old would think they understood. Eat fat, get fat. Mm-hmm. If you eat fat, you're going to get fat. And this just happens not to be true. It never was true. But the logic makes sense to a 6-year-old if they don't understand how molecules work, right? So I think that's what happened. It was always the carbs, because in the late 70s, the McGovern report on nutrition and health and the food pyramid that followed it from the Department of Agriculture, they put carbs at the bottom as the thing you should eat the most of. They put fats on top as the thing you should eat the least of. And then they put all the rest of it in between. Well, in 20 years following that, it was like around 1979, 1980 that they started using that food pyramid. And that was the government thing, right? In 20 years following that, overweight went from 25 to 60% of the population. In 20 years, in North America, from 25 to 60% of the population ended up overweight. Nobody questioned the pyramid, right? And everybody's eating carbs because they're on the bottom. That's what they've been told to do. Kellogg's, of course, was really happy, and so were all the other cereal companies, right? And it didn't work. So I came in like in the early 80s, because I got poisoned in 1980, and then I started looking at how I could fix myself from pesticide poisoning, and I was looking at all of nutrition, and I got stuck on oils because of the contradictions in it. So I read a study. It says omega-6 is an essential fatty acid, and essential when we apply it to nutrients means you can't make it in your body from anything else, but you have to have it to live and be healthy. So it has to come in from outside. That's one. Number two, if you don't get enough long enough, you die. These are really important nutrients. Number three, if your health is going down, but before you die, you bring the missing essential nutrient back, all the problems that come from getting enough are reversed. That's the good news, right? And then they also research had to have identified at least one biochemical reaction in the body that it required that nutrient, and without that nutrient, the biochemical reaction could not take place. Well, that definition applies to 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids, and the 2 essential fatty acids, right? So I read the study say omega-6 is an essential nutrient. You have to have it to live and be healthy. You die if you don't get enough long enough. And the very next study I read said omega-6 gives you cancer and kills you. And it was like, what the hell is going on here? And I thought, well, they must, I was not assuming that the research were cheating or anything. Why did they come up with opposing effects? And it was that contradiction and trying to figure it out, because I'd been poisoned and I was trying to get healthy. So I didn't need hype. I needed accurate information, right? Looking behind that, I started looking about how oils are made. And it turns out that omega-6 and omega-3 are the most sensitive of all of our essential nutrients. They're damaged by light, by oxygen, by heat. Omega-3 is 5 times more sensitive than omega-6, but both are quite sensitive. And when the industry makes oils, they want a long shelf life on a product that by nature has a very short shelf life. So what do they have to do? Well, they found out if they treat it with Drano, a very corrosive base, then with phosphoric acid, a very corrosive acid, then they bleach it with bleaching clays because the color molecules absorb light and then the light damages the oil. So they get those color molecules out, and then the oil is rancid and tastes bad and smells bad. And now they heat the oil to frying temperature for about half an hour to blow off the rancid molecules. And when that's done, you have a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil with a 3-year shelf life. They weren't thinking about health, they were thinking about shelf life. And then I found out in that process, the oil is 0.5 to 1% damaged. And I thought, okay, that's maybe not that much, but why damage it at all? So I called the American Oil Chemist Society, and I said, I want to talk to one of your researchers. They put him on the line. I said, when you know this does damage to the oils, why do you use these processes? And he said, well, one of the reasons we do it is because we can get rid of half the pesticides in the oil. So my head exploded because I'd been poisoned by pesticides. I didn't even know at that point there were pesticides in oils, right? I didn't learn at university. We never talked about that. But I didn't say that to him. That was just like, oh my God, the other half stays in. So I said to him, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have a pesticide problem. So no, long silence. Then when he got back to me, he was really angry. He was like, what? I don't know what your problem is. The oil is 99% good. It's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So now I'm backing off. I say, well, maybe I'm overreacting. It's only 1%. So I did the math. If you have a tablespoon of oil that is 1% damaged by the processing, how many damaged molecules will you have in that oil? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Okay, do a guess.
I would say 1,000. I don't know.
Okay, 1,000 has 3 zeros, right?
Yep.
Would you like to know the actual number?
Yeah.
You are 16 zeros too short in your answer.
Wow.
60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged. That's more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. And at that point I said, you know what? I can't get healthy on oils like this. We should make them with health in mind. And to do that, you have to make a very, very tight system to protect the oil from light, oxygen, and heat, so they don't get in touch with the oil from the time it's closed in the seed, in nature's packaging, through the pressing, the filling, the filtering, the settling, and then in a brown glass bottle, in a box, in the fridge, in the factory. So it has to be a really tight system. So we built that system. We came out with flax oil in 1986. That was the first oil that we made with that method. And we did that because omega-3 is the single most widespread essential nutrient deficiency of our time. 99% of the population doesn't get enough for optimum health. And we thought, oh my God, flax has a lot of omega-3. If we could bring omega-3s back, oh my God, we could help almost everybody. And so there was an enthusiasm that came out of that, like a mission from God, right? Oh my God, we could help so many people. And then we made flax oil by that method, and now it's the most sensitive oil. If we could do that well, any other oil would be a piece of cake. Now it also turns out that omega-3 is super important for brain function. In fact, if somebody called you a fathead, they used to think of it as an insult, but it's actually a compliment, because we are fatheads, and if you're not a fathead, you're in serious trouble, right? And the body, if you take the brain out and you get rid of the water in the brain, more than 60% of what's left is fat. In about a 1-to-1 ratio between omega-3 and omega-6, and in the fat, there are derivatives of those two. One is called DHA, that's the omega-3 derivative, and the other one is called arachidonic acid, which is an omega-6 derivative. Super important for brain function. When we started working with people, the things we noticed, and there's now research on it, omega-3s elevate mood and lift depression. Oh, how cool is that? Omega-3s can increase IQ by 3 to 9 points. What else? Focus is better. We had people who couldn't focus. I had a woman who called me and said, my kid is 13, she can't focus for more than 5 minutes, her marks are going down. I said, how old is she? 13. How much did she weigh? 150 pounds. Give her 3 tablespoons of oil a day, mixed in food, spread out over the course of the day. And these are oils made with health in mind. And see what happens. And so she calls me back about 4 months later, crying on the phone. I say, okay, what's going on? She says, I just wanted to thank you because my daughter's now able to focus on her schoolwork for 45 minutes at a time on her computer. And that problem she had with her attention deficit was completely gone. Oh, how cool is that, right? So it's good for that. What else? Stamina. I was in my late 50s, maybe early 60s. I'm 80. I'll be 83 next week, by the way. So I was in my early 60s, I guess, and I had a job to do that took me all day and all the next night and all the next day to get it done on a deadline. And I literally worked all day, all through the night, and the whole next day. I couldn't do that in my 30s. I could do it in my 60s. What was the difference? In the 30s, I wasn't using good oils. In the 30s, I got poisoned when I was 38, so that's when the oil thing began with me. Other thing I noticed, coordination. I used to be a clumsy little kid. I was always the last guy voted on the soccer team. And it was kind of like they'd all hoped that I didn't come up on their odd or even number. And I'd be the last guy, okay, we'll take him. And I was super incoordinated. I also have some vision loss on one eye that came from when I was a kid in the Second World War. But yeah, and that changed. I was also really cold sensitive. In winter, my feet were always cold. That changed when I started taking omega-3s, because omega-3s increase metabolic rate, they increase oxygen metabolism, they increase energy production. And they're really good for keeping warm in winter. Of course, they're also polar oils, right? They're the closer to the poles you go, both north, south pole, the more omega-3s are in the food chain there. And we think, the way I think about it as well, a salmon is cold-blooded, right? So it's swimming in cold water in the ocean, and a seal, which is warm-blooded, chases it. Well, what does the salmon need to be able to function quickly at a low temperature? Well, the omega-3s are their ticket, right? So what else? So also physical stamina. We've worked with athletes, and if within 30 days, if they took a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of the blend that we made after we made the flax oil. Flax oil is not a well-balanced oil. You need to balance omega-3 and 6 because they have opposing functions in the body to some extent, but they use the same enzyme systems to get converted into their derivatives. A lot of them are hormone-like regulating molecules in all our cells. So they compete, so the ratio has to be right. And when you get the ratio right, these athletes, if they did their sport to exhaustion, were able to increase their performance to exhaustion by 40 to 60% in 30 days. Now, there's no training program on the planet that gets you that kind of improvements in performance. So there's a lot of, then if you get enough, we measure optimum by how skin feels, because your skin gets them last and loses them first, simply because you can live with dry skin. But if your heart or your liver or your brain dried out, you wouldn't do well with that. So skin gets them last, loses them first. When you get enough, then they form a barrier together, omega-3 and 6 together, form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture. And you end up with soft, smooth, velvety skin, not dry, and you don't need to put gunk on it. So there's all kinds of, and then the fact that you have more energy just makes pretty much your hormones work better, makes your organs work better, and I would say the reason why at almost 83 I'm still firing on at least 2 cylinders has a lot to do with the oil. I do other things too. I also do meditation, and I know how to de-stress and get really calm, and that's good for health too. But I think in terms of all the physical things I'm doing, that's got to be number one. All this time now that people are saying, oh, don't use omega-6s and don't use seed oils, every day I take my 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of Udo's oil, and what I do is I mix it in tahini, and then I dip my vegetables in it. And it's a good way to take it. I put a lot of spices in it. I love spices. And I'm not backing off of that because I've been working on it for 45 years, None of the guys that make all these crazy statements have talked to me. They don't know what I do. Some of them make assumptions about what I do that are completely off base. I actually did the work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they can't conceive that anybody would do the work because they haven't done it.
Exactly.
Right?
You know, there's a lot of conflicts out there in nutritional advice for sure. And people are saying, you know, that they can go to the grocery store and buy specific oils and do this. What do you think about that? And what do you think the implications are of getting them from a store shelf? You know, just, you know, there was one study that I read that showed if somebody took a tablespoon of olive oil, their chances of dementia went down 40%. You know, I don't know. They should have done it with Udo's oil to see what would happen, but that's one of the studies that's often quoted, you know,
Okay.
about oils.
Okay. Well, it's always easier to say something. Sometimes there's research to back it up, sometimes there isn't. For avocado oil, for instance, there are no standards of quality. But if you take oils, just generally take oils off the shelf, almost all of them are in plastic bottles. And if an oil is in plastic bottles, you've got a problem. And the reason for that is that the chemistry of oils and the chemistry of plastic are very similar. This carbon-hydrogen chemistry. So when you put oil in a plastic bottle, the plastic swells, and then stuff in the plastic will drift into the oil. If you put a saran wrap or like a plastic wrap on food, that plastic will end up in the food in direct proportion to the amount of fat or oil in the food. Okay, so that's one of the, so we've talked about pesticides, we've talked about damaged molecules, 60 quintillion molecules damaged in a tablespoon. Now you got to add to that plastic that leaches out of the bottle, and we're now talking about microplastics and plastics and how they interfere. So this is not a good thing. And then the last thing is that most people use oils for frying, and when you fry the oil, if you've got 1 million molecules for every cell in a tablespoon, and then you fry that oil, then you're probably going to end up between 3 to 6 times more damaged molecules per cell in that fried oil. Okay, so everything we're doing with oils is bad for health, unless we eat the seeds and nuts they come from, or we make them with health in mind and take the care that we need to, both in making them and in storing them, and in if they go more than 2 weeks on the road, we actually ship them refrigerated. Mm-hmm. And in the way we use them. You mix them in food after they come off the heat. You never, ever, 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 ever want to use good oils for frying, because fried oils will fry your health. It is the dumbest thing we've ever invented to do to food if health is our goal, to fry food. So I tell people, get your frying pan. Everybody's got one. Go get it from wherever you store it. Turn it upside down. Whop yourself upside the head of it so it's associated with pain, and throw that stupid thing out. And go back to cooking in water, because nature's mandate is actually fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, seasonal, mostly plant-based food for humans.
Yeah.
And
so what would you say with processing oils that are out there right now? There's obviously, there's a rise in dementia. You're 80 years old and don't seem to have it at all. But there's a lot of people out there, they're saying that even at 40 years old, people are getting Alzheimer's symptoms.
Yeah.
There was one report of a 27-year-old they diagnosed with Alzheimer's. What do you think the impact is on brain health with all these oils? So you're talking about plastic bottles, frying pans. I mean, a lot of people, when I live here in the South, they say if it isn't fried, it isn't cooked. So what do you say about that?
Yeah, if it's okay. Well, the body is physical, so it's made out of food, water, and air. Okay, and there are only 3 ways that you can screw it up. Either molecules that are essential are missing, so a lot of people are omega-3 deficient. Okay, either something you need is missing, but lots of people don't get enough B vitamins and zinc and vitamin C. So either something you need that's essential is missing, or you're getting too much of something that shouldn't be there. That would be called toxicity. So deficiency, toxicity. That could be plastics, that could be pesticides, that could be side effects from industrial chemicals. It could be damaged food molecules, right? And the third one is if your digestion isn't working, you won't get all of your essential nutrients, and you might create toxins in your own digestive system, or through a microbiome that isn't right. Right? Those are the three ways we get screwed up. And it doesn't matter if you if you're talking about Alzheimer's or cancer or strokes or anything. Those three things are always where you got to look on the physical level. Then there's mental issues that give you high blood pressure, so you got to look at that as well. And then there is being stressed all the time because you don't know how to get to the quiet place in you. You got to look at that, or other people that make you sick, or your environment is polluted. So, but on the physical level, it's always deficiency, or toxicity, or poor processing of foods that give you both toxicity and deficiency. So those are the three things. If somebody has Alzheimer's, if it's not genetic, and Alzheimer's is not generally speaking a genetic thing. If it was genetic, it would probably start a lot earlier than 26. But if it's not genetic, then it has to be environmental. And then you have to look at it. What do we need to do? Well, we need to clean up this planet. We've been dumping garbage everywhere. Fish is now the dirtiest meat on the planet. And you know how deep the ocean goes? Like 11 miles in places, right? Fish is the dirtiest meat on the planet because we've been dumping stuff on land. Everything goes downhill, and if it's water soluble or oil soluble, ends up going in the ocean, and in the ocean it'll go up the food chain, it'll concentrate in anything that has oil in it. So the fish we eat, salmon for instance, salmon is a high-fat fish at the top of its food chain, and so you can expect the most toxicity, industrial toxicity. We call them environmental pollutants, but they're actually industrial pollutants. The environment is not polluting itself. The industry is polluting the environment. So,
right,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we're here talking to Udo Erasmus. He's the pioneer behind oils, fats that heal and fats that kill. And we're going to have links below. So if you want to find out more about what Udo is up to, we're going to have them below. We're going to continue on here, but I want to make sure that they know we're going to have a solution for them below, a place where they can buy your oil. There'll be a link down there so they can go and find it. What do you think the most common myths are about dietary fats that come to brain health, and how can we separate this fact from fiction? Because like you said, there's some pretty big names out there saying some things that are totally off the mark and scaring the heck out of people. Most of the time, they don't have a solution. They're just scaring people, and then they leave it up to the person to go research.
Yeah, so you've already answered the question. So we've already talked about two. One is fats make you fat. Not true. Okay? Second one is seed oils and omega-6s are bad. You shouldn't eat them. Not true. We should be blaming the damage done to them for the problems they cause, not the essential nutrient. Essential nutrients don't cause problems, and omega-6 is an essential nutrient. So that's the second one. Frying is the worst thing we've ever done with oils. That's number 3. And how do you find out where to go? It's hard, because liars are, can do so with a straight face, If every time you lied, your nose went longer, or it said on there like in a neon sign, lying, that would be nice. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes.
Well, we don't have that. I would say it this way. If you listen to people tell you what's wrong with fats, then look at what is their solution other than don't eat fats. Right. What are they, if fats are a problem, what have they done to fix the problem? And I like to take credit for the fact that we fixed the problem 45 years ago. We figured it out 45 years ago by looking deeper into it because the contradictions didn't make sense. None of these guys have done that. Ask them what is their solution. And some of them will tell you, well, olive oil. You mentioned it a bit ago, right? If you get extra virgin olive oil, the good part is it's not damaged by processing. That's why people like it. The bad part is it has no omega-3s in it. It's only got 10% omega-6. The rest of it, 90% of what's in olive oil, your body can make out of sugar and starch, because your body can make saturated fats and monounsaturated fats out of sugar and starch. That's the fats it turns them into. And then the other problem is that olive oil became very popular very quickly, about 20 years ago. And olive trees grow really slowly. So all of a sudden, the demand was way bigger than the supply. So what did the merchants do? They mixed it with cheaper oils. So now when you get extra virgin olive oil, it may not be extra virgin olive oil. You may have soybean oil or canola oil in there, completely different. And those are not made with health in mind. Those are damaged. And the way I figure it out is if you get olive oil, put it in your fridge, it should go solid in the fridge. If your olive oil doesn't go solid in the fridge, or at least form crystals in the oil, then it's been doctored with something else, right?
That's a great tip, yeah.
Yeah, So, and I don't use it at all. I use my stuff, I know what's in it. Oil should be in glass. Oil should never be used in frying. Fried foods fry health, right? And so, yeah, you have to pay, and that's the arena in nutrition where you have to pay the most attention, because the most damage in our food supply doesn't come from pesticides. You know, you have traces of pesticides, but 1% is a lot. And 3 to 5% if you fry the oil. That's really a lot of toxicity that you're bringing in. You know, most people take 2 to 4 tablespoons a day. If that's 1% damaged, you're talking about 56 grams. So you're getting half a gram of more than half a gram of damaged oil every day. You're putting it deliberately putting it in your body. Well, wherever it goes in your body, because it's damaged, it's not natural, it doesn't belong there. It will go somewhere, take up space that should be occupied by something natural, and then will interfere with what's supposed to be going on in that space. And when that happens long enough, it becomes a diagnosable disease, a degenerative disease. And that's from toxicity, right? So we have, with oils, we have both deficiency of omega-3 and toxicity of damaged oil molecules. Omega-6, we get enough, but we get it with the toxic molecules. And then they interfere with mitochondrial function, but it's not the omega-6 that interferes, it's the damaged molecules. And the damaged molecules are harder to get rid of because they can't just be metabolized and processed through the system because they're not supposed to be there.
The unfortunate part about people that have these degenerative diseases, they don't look at their diet. They don't look at what they're eating. So What do you think, how could somebody listening to this say, do I have a deficiency in these? I'm sure I would say all of them have a deficiency, but what would be some of the signs and signals?
99% of the population does not get enough omega-3s.
Yeah. What would they notice as a deficiency, so that because sometimes, you know, it's kind of like the dog you're trying to train. Sometimes you got to put their nose in the poop. You know, what you know, what do you find's going on? What could they point to?
You got a problem, put your nose in your poop and see if you can figure it out. No. So if your skin is dry, you're not getting enough oil. That's probably the easiest. Like that shows up in winter more than in summer. You need more oil in winter because you burn more for energy in winter. If you're in the desert, that shows up more than in a humid place. But even in humid places, people's skin gets dry. Well, that means you're not getting enough oil. You're not getting optimum intake of oil. And then the oils need to be undamaged. So you either eat the seeds and nuts. You can eat flaxseed and those nuts should not be roasted or salted. They should be fresh and organic, right? So that's the area where you go. But you could also get Alzheimer's from lack of B vitamins. You could also get poor brain function from lack of vitamin C. So fundamentally, maybe you need to invest in knowing what are the 42 essential nutrients, and build a program in which you make sure that you get either in supplement form or in food form, and preferably in food form, you're getting all of your nutrients. Because life knows what to do if you take responsibility here at your mouth to make sure that all the essential building blocks land in your body. And I don't know how else to do it. And then you have to play with your food. You know, your mother said, don't play with your food. It's the only advice your mother gave you that you should not listen to. Because if you don't play with your food, how do you know what works better for you and what doesn't work better for you? So try stuff out, like sometimes I eat really bad stuff. My excuse is, well, how would I know how bad it is if I never tried it?
There you go.
Right? But I don't do much of that, but I do some. I play with it. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you do a little reading. You get one body, you get maybe 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. Get one body, read at least one good book on nutrition. We have, it's crazy. We've been here for 200,000 years. We don't know what health is. We don't even have a definition of health, a really good practical definition of health. We have a healthcare system that is a disease management system misrepresenting itself as healthcare. We've never, it's like, so one of my retirement programs, total health based in nature and human nature. I want to turn that into a teachable field. And the other one is human nature as a teachable field. That's we haven't done that either. Human nature, that's all we got. What do we know about it? Almost nothing. Half of our cultural stuff is BS, and half of our scientific stuff is BS, because now everybody's cheating on everything. And so how do you get to know who you are? Well, you got to probably spend some time being with yourself, being alert, noticing what is in you, what is in the space your body occupies. And in there you find your peace, in there you find your love, in there you find your inspiration, in there you find your wisdom. It's like there's a lot in a human being, but we mostly live out there in interaction. Mm-hmm. When, and then we're always in reaction to what's going on instead of living proactively from the beauty of our own existence. So there's, so that's what I'm working on now. And when it comes to the physical part, oils are still, and will probably be for a while, the most misrepresented and misunderstood part of nutrition.
You've kind of talked about it before, but I think it bears reviewing, because when someone looks at you online, if they don't know about you and they start looking at some of your podcasts and seeing your writings, you talk a lot about plant-based diet mm-hmm. and the benefits. But can you tell us the benefits for brain resilience, focus, and long-term vitality?
Well, I would say, it's interesting. This doesn't make the news a lot because the meat industry and the animal foods industry, meat, egg, dairy, they don't talk about it. But even for sexuality, plant-based, if they're doing it properly, can get it up longer and older than animal-based. Oh, that's interesting, right? Now, how about this? If you look at the lifespan of the carnivores, all the different carnivores on the planet, and you look at the lifespan of the plant-based eaters on the planet, the plant-based eaters live longer. The research on humans is really clear now. If you want the longest, healthiest life, you do it on a diet that is mostly whole food plant-based. Right? And the idea that you have to have a steak every day is completely crazy. It's not good for the environment either. And I'm not plant-based. I'm not plant-based because I have a philosophy about it. I'm paying attention to my body. And as I've gotten older, I didn't start off plant-based. We ate meat once a week because we lived on a farm without electricity, and so my father would have to drive into town to get a piece of meat. And we didn't have any refrigerator to keep the meat, so he'd go to town, bring it, we'd eat it on Friday night, whatever it was, right? And we had a huge garden. So, but then I came into Vancouver to go to school, and I ate like everybody else did. And gradually, as I've gotten older and learned more and paying attention to my body, I've become more and more close to plant-based as I've gotten older. And I have a ton of energy. I do gardening jobs. I take trees down. I do. Like I dug a bamboo patch where I dug out all the roots that over 40 years went all through the lawns and everywhere. And it's like they're like very complex, and it's a lot of digging. So I'm doing pretty good for an old guy. I'm not drooling yet.
Yes.
And I have a lot of energy, and a lot of the energy comes from the oil. There's no doubt in my mind that the just like with the athletes, oils get you more energy, and the omega-3s get you more energy than any other nutrient molecule. It's 9 calories per gram, but it increases thermogenesis and it increases metabolic rate and oxygen metabolism. That's where most of your energy comes from. So, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yeah. I have one more question before I open it up to just any closing remarks you have, because we're getting ready to close out the show. But you already mentioned it a little bit, but I think if you could explain how taking personal responsibility for your nutrition choices empowers a person to protect and enhance brain function over time, or just physical function, really. Because the brain, of course, as we get older, we don't want to live to 100, but have somebody take care of us the last 40 years of our life. We want to
we want to go to 100 and take care of other people till we check out.
Yes. So what would you say when people get empowered to take care of their own self? What is your philosophy about that? Because a lot of people, they're always looking for the outside. Like you said, we have the sick care industry that says they're healthcare, but they're really not healthcare. They think health is the absence of illness, which is kind of a negative. That's not.
That's like saying that's like light is the absence of darkness instead of darkness is the absence of light, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, well, I guess I had it forced on me when I got poisoned. I knew it was pesticides because I was spraying them. I was careless. My marriage broke up and I wanted to kill something. So I was pretty upset. I was 38, right? Went to the doctor, said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? And she said, nothing. And at that point, the penny dropped for me that my health is my responsibility. So it kind of got forced on me by my own design, yes. Right? So I'm not blaming anybody, but I did it to myself. And sometimes, a lot of times, we do stupid things to create our own learning situation. Because apparently we need to learn it, because we wouldn't be doing stupid things if we didn't have something to learn, right?
Right.
But the other way I look at it is your life is a flow of unconditional, empowering love for your body. So if you're looking for love, shut up, close your eyes, turn off all your distractions, get present with yourself. When you feel that love, you're going to do anything you need to do to extend the party for as long as you can. When you don't feel love, and then you think, oh, it should be out there, but it ain't coming to me. Oh, I don't know what's wrong. Why am I so effed up, right? Oh, so then you don't feel like taking care of yourself because it's all too much work. It's not worth being alive. I'm being blunt, right? It's not worth being alive if it takes that much energy to look after myself. So I would say to people, the first thing you need to do, and I think all wise people over the course of history in every culture have said that, make time every day to get quiet, to shut up, to go into stillness, to go into silence, and discover the peace and discover the love and discover the beauty of your own existence. Because all you are is like, look, dust, water, air, and a little bit of sunlight. That's you, right? Well, dust, air, water, and sunlight can't have a human experience. But when they all get mixed up to make you, oh my God, you get to have the human experience, right? and for all of what it is, the joys and the sorrows and the actions and the dancing and the sex and like everything to it. What a gift. When you feel like your life is a gift, you want to unpack it. And when you unpack it, then you know that I do certain things, they make me feel better, make me feel more capable, make me feel more present. Then you want to do those things, because the whole point of your existence is that you should enjoy it fully. And you got to be fully present to enjoy your presence fully. Right? And how you get there to that quiet place, whether you do it through what you're doing, right? Guided, I don't know what you call it, but I would call a guided imagery or a guided meditation, or whether you do it through self-knowledge, or whether you do it through a stillness practice, a mindfulness practice, whatever it is. But make that time for yourself, because it's your gift. If you don't enjoy it, it's a wasted gift, because nobody else can enjoy it for you. So, and you were given it for free. And you're just like wasting it. It's like, why? Right? So that would be, for me, it's like if in terms of responsibility, the responsibility, it's like, that's so heavy. I want freedom, I don't want responsibility. Responsibility seems heavy, but not if you're lit up.
Right.
So then it's like, what else can I do that'll make this experience more, and then the other thing is, I think when you do that, you also recognize, oh my God, I have everything. I'm completely cared for. And then your life changes to saying, okay, well, now I'm not looking for, what can I do that'll take care of me? So like, okay, I know where to go to feel cared for. Okay, where can I help? Okay, what needs to be done? Okay, how can I make the biggest splash for good in the time I have, right? So it makes your life simple. So now you end up in a life of peace, love, and service. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the responsibility is natural to the enjoyment, to the direct personal internal enjoyment of your existence.
That's great. Well, Udo, I want to thank you for sharing your decades of wisdom and transformation, the power of healing fats, and just your philosophy. I think it's wonderful. I think everybody could learn from that. So listeners today, if you've loved this episode, which I have, I've learned a great deal, and I thought I knew a lot about you and about your oils already, but you enlightened me a little bit there. So if this shifted your perception in any way in brain health, then please subscribe and share this podcast. And remember, a sharper mind starts with smarter choices. So Udo, again, thanks for being on the call and sharing your wisdom. You could be out there pulling weeds or out in the garden or doing whatever you do that is fun, but you're sharing your knowledge with the world, which is a great thing. We look forward. Remember, in the show notes is all the links to his Instagram, some YouTube videos I picked out that I thought would be good to support this. There's also your website itself. I recommend everyone try this oil. It's awesome, and I think you'll find a big shift. And, remember, take that frying pan out, hit yourself over the head if you still want to fry with it. I think that was a good thing. And our goal is to better a billion brains. So if you've listened this far in the podcast, it's your brain we're talking about. And essential fats, the omega-3s and omega-6s are so essential for that. And Udo has already done the work. He's been doing it for 40 years.
Can we change that number to 8 billion?
8 billion? Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Sure. Yeah. We'd love to help them all. So again, thank you, Udo, for being on the call. We're going to get this out to the world, and hopefully the world helps us get it out to the rest of them so we can help those 8 billion people, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and what you shared is very valuable, and the world needs to know about it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to better a billion brains. Follow at Dr. Patrick Porter on social media for updates, and remember to practice brain fitness every day.